Commander Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the research ship Aegis Dawn, watching the strange lights dance across his screens. The alien artifact below them pulsed with colors that had no names. It sat on the dead world of Karos Prime like a sleeping giant, waiting for someone brave enough to wake it up. "Sir, we're getting readings I've never seen before," said Dr. Park Hannah, his science officer. She pushed her black hair behind her ear and frowned at her computer. "This thing is putting out energy patterns that shouldn't exist." Lee Jun walked over to look at her screen. The numbers made no sense. The artifact was producing power levels that could fuel entire cities, but it wasn't connected to anything. It just sat there in the middle of the dead planet, glowing with an inner fire that seemed alive. "How long has it been there?" he asked. "Our best guess is about 50,000 years, Park Hannah replied, "maybe longer." "The planet died around the same time the artifact appeared. Could be connected." Lee Jun nodded. "That's why they were here." The Galactic Council had detected the artifact 6 months ago and asked humans to investigate it. It was supposed to be an honor. Humans were new to the galactic community, and this was their chance to prove they belonged among the stars. But something felt wrong. Lee Jun had been in space for 15 years. He knew when things didn't add up. The council had given them this mission to Italy. Usually, they kept humans away from anything important. They treated humans like children, who couldn't be trusted with dangerous toys. "Commander," called out Kim Tae, the communications officer, "I'm getting a priority message from the council." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed the face of Counselor Vex, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. His species, the Kaleri, had been part of the council for over 1,000 years. They were known for being careful and calculating. "Commander Lee Jun," Vex said in his mechanical voice, "the council has decided that the artifact is too dangerous for further study. You are ordered to return to base immediately." Lee Jun felt his stomach drop. They had been studying the artifact for only 3 days. They hadn't even gone down to the surface yet. "Sir, we've barely started our research," Lee Jun said. "If you give us more time, the order is final," Vex interrupted. "The artifact will be secured by council forces. Prepare for immediate departure." The screen went black dot. Lee Jun looked around the bridge. His crew was all staring at him. There were 12 humans on the ship, along with 8 aliens from different council species. The aliens were supposed to be there to help and learn from human methods. Now they all looked nervous. "You heard the order," Lee Jun said. "Prepare for departure." But as his crew began working, Lee Jun noticed things that made his skin crawl. The alien crew members were whispering to each other in their own languages. They kept looking at the humans and then looking away quickly. The ship's VOS security chief, Captain Krell, was checking his weapon more often than usual. Park Hannah came over to him quietly. "Sir, I need to show you something," she whispered. She led him to her private lab. Once the door was closed, she pulled up a different set of readings on her computer. "I didn't tell you everything about the artifact," she said. "I found something strange. The energy it gives off reacts to human emotions. When you got angry during yesterday's meeting, the artifact's power levels spiked. When Kim Soo was sad about missing her family, the levels dropped but became more stable." Lee Jun stared at the data. "Are you saying it responds to us?" "I think it was made for us," Park Hannah said. "Or for someone like us. The patterns match human brainwaves almost perfectly. It's like it's been waiting for humans to find it." A chill ran down Lee Jun's spine. If the artifact was connected to humans somehow, that would explain why the council wanted them away from it so quickly. "Sir," Park Hannah continued, "I intercepted some alien communications. They weren't being careful about encryption. The council didn't just want us to study this thing. They wanted to see what would happen when humans got near it." "What do you mean?" "I think we were bait, sir. They wanted to test the artifact's reaction to humans without risking their own people." Before Lee Jun could respond, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. The lights flickered and changed to red emergency lighting. "All human crew members report to the main cargo bay immediately," came Captain Krell's voice over the intercom. "This is not a drill." Lee Jun and Park Hannah looked at each other. Something was very wrong. They made their way to the cargo bay, where they found the other 10 humans already waiting. The 8 alien crew members stood around them in a circle, weapons drawn. Captain Krell, a 7-foot-tall reptilian with yellow eyes, stepped forward. "The Galactic Council has issued new orders," Krell said in his hissing voice. "All humans on this mission are to be terminated. The artifact is too dangerous to leave in human hands." Lee Jun felt the world spin around him. "You're talking about murder." "We are talking about the safety of the galaxy," Krell replied. "Humans are too unpredictable, too emotional. The artifact responds to your kind in ways we cannot control. The council has decided that this cannot be allowed." "We trusted you," said Kim Soo, the young engineer. She was barely 25 years old. "Your trust was misplaced," Krell said. He raised his weapon. The fighting started fast and ended faster. The humans had no weapons. They had trusted their alien crewmates completely. It was a massacre. Lee Jun watched his friends die one by one. Kim Tae tried to run and was shot in the back. Engineer Namho tried to fight with his bare hands and was cut down. Young Kim Soo screamed as laser fire found her. Park Hannah fell next to Lee Jun, her chest burned open by alien weapons. She grabbed his hand as she died. The artifact, she whispered with her last breath. It's not alien technology. It's human. It's what we could become. Then she was gone. Lee Jun was the last one alive. The aliens grabbed him and dragged him toward the shuttle bay. They were taking him down to the planet, to the artifact itself. The council wants to see how the artifact reacts when a human dies near it, Krell explained as they loaded Lee Jun into the shuttle. You should be honored. Your death will serve science. As they flew down to the planet's surface, Lee Jun could see the artifact growing larger through the shuttle window. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It looked like a mountain made of crystallized fire, pulsing with inner light that hurt to look at directly. They landed near the artifact and dragged Lee Jun out. He was bleeding from several wounds, but the aliens wanted him alive when they reached the artifact itself. They had plans for him. The artifact towered above them, at least 100 feet tall. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing and shifting like living things. As they got closer, Lee Jun could feel heat coming from it. Not the heat of fire, but something deeper, the heat of creation itself. Fascinating, said Dr. Zeth, the council scientist who had been pretending to be part of Lee Jun's research team. The artifact's energy levels are increasing as we approach with the human subject. They forced Lee Jun to his knees in front of the artifact. Captain Krell aimed his weapon at Lee Jun's head. Any last words? Human. Lee Jun looked up at the artifact. The symbols on its surface were moving faster now, pulsing with urgent light. He could almost understand what they were trying to say. Yeah, Lee Jun said. You made a mistake. What mistake? You should have killed me quickly. The artifact erupted in flames. The fire that erupted from the artifact was unlike anything Lee Jun had ever seen. It wasn't the red and orange flames he knew from Earth. This fire was silver and blue, with streaks of gold that moved like liquid starlight. It reached out toward him like living hands, wrapping around his body with gentle warmth. The aliens stepped back in fear. Captain Krell raised his weapon, but the flames were already surrounding Lee Jun completely. The reptilian alien fired his laser weapon directly at Lee Jun's chest. The beam passed right through the fire and hit nothing but air. Impossible, Dr. Zeth whispered. The readings show he should be burning alive. But Lee Jun wasn't burning. The fire felt warm and comforting, like a blanket on a cold night. It flowed over his skin and seeped into his wounds, healing them instantly. The pain from the alien weapons disappeared. The grief from watching his friends die began to fade into something else, something stronger. The fire whispered to him, not in words, but in feelings and images that filled his mind. He saw the birth of the first stars, when the universe was young and full of possibilities. He saw civilizations rising and falling across millions of years. He saw the moment when this fire first came to be, born from the dreams and hopes of countless beings who dared to reach for something better. What is happening to him? Captain Krell demanded. He fired his weapon again, but the beam passed through Lee Jun like he was made of light. The fire showed Lee Jun the truth. The artifact wasn't built by aliens. It was created by the universe itself, by the same force that made stars shine and planets spin. It had been waiting here for 50,000 years, waiting for the right species to find it. A species that could carry its gift without being destroyed by it. Most beings in the galaxy were afraid of change. They wanted everything to stay the same, safe, and predictable. But humans were different. Humans dreamed of better worlds, better lives, better futures. They were willing to risk everything for the chance to grow and become something more. That's why the fire chose humans. That's why it chose Lee Jun. The flames around him grew brighter. Lee Jun stood up slowly, feeling power flow through his body like electricity. He looked at his hands and saw that they were glowing with the same silver-blue light as the artifact. The fire had become part of him, and he had become part of it. Kill him now, Dr. Zeth shouted. Before the transformation completes, all 8 aliens opened fire at once. Laser beams, plasma bolts, and energy bullets all struck Lee Jun at the same time. The weapons that could destroy buildings and melt through starship armor did nothing. To him, the fire absorbed every attack, growing stronger with each hit. Lee Jun raised his hand. The gesture was simple, almost gentle. But the aliens' weapons began to smoke and spark. The metal barrels grew hot, then white-hot, then melted like candles in the sun. Within seconds, all 8 weapons were nothing but puddles of liquid metal, on the ground. This cannot be, Captain Krell said, staring at his melted weapon. No single being has this kind of power. I'm not a single being anymore, Lee Jun said. His voice sounded the same, but there was something new in it, something ancient and patient and vast. I am connected to something much bigger than myself. The fire showed him more visions. He saw the Galactic Council as they really were. Not wise leaders, keeping peace in the galaxy, but frightened old beings, who were terrified of change. They had ruled for thousands of years by keeping everyone else weak and divided. They made sure no species could grow too powerful or learn too much. But humans were different. In just a few hundred years, humans had gone from living in caves to traveling between stars. They learned faster, adapted quicker, and dreamed bigger than any species the Council had ever seen. That's why the Council feared them. That's why they had set this trap. You planned this from the beginning, Li Jun said to Dr. Z. If you wanted to see what would happen when humans found the artifact, you were hoping it would kill us. Dr. Zeth, a tall gray alien with large black eyes, nodded slowly. The artifact has been here for 50,000 years. We knew it was connected to some kind of cosmic force, but we could never unlock its secrets. We needed test subjects. Humans were perfect, expendable, and curious. But it didn't kill me. No, Dr. Zeth admitted. It did something we never expected. It bonded with you, made you into something new. Li Jun looked around at the alien scientists and soldiers who had murdered his friends. The fire inside him wanted to burn them all to ash. It would be so easy. Just one thought, and they would be gone. But Park Hannah's last words echoed in his mind. The artifact wasn't about destruction. It was about what humans could become. Leave, Li Jun said, simply. What? Captain Krell asked. Take your shuttle and leave this planet. Go back to the Council. Tell them what happened here. You're not going to kill us. Dr. Zeth asked. Surprised. Li Jun shook his head. Killing? You won't bring back my friends, and it won't change what the Council has planned for humanity. The aliens looked at each other nervously. They had expected to die. Now they didn't know what to think. But if I see any of you again, Li Jun continued, if you hurt any more humans, the fire won't be so merciful next time. The aliens ran to their shuttle like children fleeing from a nightmare. Li Jun watched them take off and disappear into the dark sky. Soon he was alone on the dead planet with only the artifact for company. He walked closer to the towering crystal structure. Now that the fire lived inside him, he could understand the symbols carved into its surface. They weren't words in any language. They were concepts, ideas, dreams, given form. The symbols told the story of the universe's birth, when everything was new and anything was possible. They told of the first beings to look up at the stars and wonder what was out there. They told of the endless cycle of creation and destruction that kept the cosmos alive and growing. And they told of humanity's destiny. Li Jun pressed his hand against the artifact's surface. The moment his skin touched the crystal, he saw everything. Every human world in the galaxy. Every colony, every ship, every person trying to make a life among the stars. He saw their hopes and fears, their dreams and struggles. He also saw the Council's plan. Operation Prometheus, they called it. Within 6 months, Council fleets would attack every human settlement simultaneously. Not to conquer, but to destroy completely. They wanted to wipe humanity from the galaxy before humans could grow too powerful to stop. The fire inside Li Jun flared with anger, but he controlled it. Anger alone wouldn't save his people. He needed to be smart. He needed to be better than the Council expected. I understand now, he said to the artifact. This isn't just about me, it's about all of us. Humans aren't just another species in the galaxy. We're something new, something that could change everything. The artifact pulsed with approval. The fire inside, Li Jun settled into a steady, warm glow. He could feel it there, ready to help him when he needed it. But it wouldn't control him. The choice of what to do with this power was his alone. Li Jun looked up at the stars, where millions of humans lived and worked and dreamed of better tomorrows. They didn't know what was coming for them. They didn't know that their own Council allies were planning to betray them, but they would soon. Li Jun rose into the air, lifted by flames that bent space and time around him. He had people to save and a galaxy to change. The fire had chosen him, but now he had to choose what kind of man he would become with this incredible power. As he flew toward the stars, leaving the dead world behind, one thought burned in his mind like a promise. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were dangerous before. Now they would learn what humanity could really do when pushed too far. The fire followed him into space, trailing behind him like the tail of a comet. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a sign of hope for some and a warning to others. Li Jun was no longer just a man. He was humanity's answer to those who would destroy them, and he was just getting started. 6 months had passed since the day Li Jun became something more than human. 6 months since the fire chose him on that dead world. Now, stories about him spread through the galaxy like whispers in the dark. Space station security guards talked about cameras that caught glimpses of a man wrapped in impossible flames. Merchant ship captains shared drinks and told stories about mysterious engine failures when they carried Council agents. Their power cores would drain overnight, leaving them stranded in empty space with no explanation. The Galactic Council called him a cosmic threat. They put his picture on wanted posters in 12 languages. They offered rewards that could buy entire planets for information leading to his capture. But Li Jun moved through space like a ghost, appearing where he was needed most and vanishing before anyone could stop him. He had learned to feed on energy itself. Stars gave him strength. The power core of starships recharged his abilities. Even the life force of planets could sustain him when he needed it most. The fire had taught him to move through space without ships, to travel faster than light by bending reality around him. But today was different. Today, he had found something that made the fire burn hotter with rage. The industrial world of Nexus 7 looked peaceful from orbit. Factories and cities covered most of the planet's surface. Millions of beings from dozens of species worked there, building the ships and machines that kept the galaxy running. It looked like any other council world. But Li Jun could see deeper. Now the fire showed him things that normal eyes couldn't detect. Hidden beneath the main city was a black site facility, a secret prison where the council conducted experiments too terrible to do in public. And they were experimenting on humans. Li Jun descended through the planet's atmosphere, like a falling star. His flames left a bright trail across the night sky that people would remember for years to come. He landed outside the hidden facility. Just as the late shift was beginning, the building looked like an ordinary warehouse from the outside, but underground, it held horrors that would make devils weep. Li Jun placed his hand on the ground and let the fire flow into the earth. It spread through the building's foundation, mapping every room and corridor. He counted 37 human prisoners in the deepest levels. Some had been there for months, others for years. All of them were being tortured in the name of science. The facility's commander was a crystalline being called Vexstar. His species, the Jerry, were known for their cold logic and complete lack of empathy. They made perfect researchers when the work required, ignoring screams and pleas for mercy. Vexter was in his office when every light in the complex began to flicker. Computer screens went dark, emergency power kicked in, then failed. The entire facility plunged into darkness. "What is happening?" Vexstar demanded through his communicator. "Unknown energy signature detected," came a panicked voice from the control room. "All our systems are failing simultaneously." Vexter looked out his office window and saw a glow coming from the main corridor. It started as a faint light, then grew brighter. Soon the entire hallway was filled with silver-blue flames that gave off no heat but plenty of fear. Li Jun walked through the facility like Judgment Day itself. Guards tried to stop him with weapons that turned to slag in there. Hands-reinforced doors melted like ice in summer heat. Security systems that could stop armies became useless scrap metal. He found the first group of human prisoners in Laboratory Section C. They were strapped to tables while alien scientists performed experiments that had no medical purpose. Scientists were trying to understand what made humans different, what made them so adaptable and unpredictable. They were cutting into living humans to find their secrets. Li Jun's flames roared with fury, but he controlled them carefully. The fire consumed the restraints holding the prisoners without burning. Their skin melted the surgical instruments without harming the humans they had been cutting. The alien scientists tried to run, but their legs wouldn't move. The fire had wrapped around them like invisible chains, holding them in place while the humans they had tortured walked free. "Please," one of the prisoners whispered. She was a young woman named Kim Soo, barely old enough to be away from Earth. "They've been hurting us for so long." "I know," Li Jun said gently. "You're safe now." He moved through the facility methodically, freeing every human prisoner he found. There were 37 in total. Men, women, even a few teenagers who had been captured from frontier colonies. All of them bore scars from months or years of experimentation. The fire healed their wounds as Li Jun freed them. Broken bones mended. Surgical scars faded. The physical damage was easy to repair. The emotional damage would take longer. Commander Vexstar waited for Li Jun in the facility's main laboratory. The crystalline alien stood 8 feet tall, his body made of living diamond that reflected light in rainbow patterns. In his forearms he held weapons designed to disrupt energy beings. "So you are the anomaly," Vexter said in his cold, mechanical voice. "The human who bonded with the Kairos Prime artifact. We have learned much from studying your species. You are indeed fascinating creatures." "Let me guess," Li Jun said as he entered the lab. "You've been torturing humans to figure out why the artifact chose us." "Torture is such an ugly word. We prefer to call it research. Your species possesses unique neural patterns that interact with quantum energy fields in unprecedented ways. We needed to understand how this was possible." Li Jun looked around. The laboratory. It was filled with equipment designed to cause pain while keeping subjects alive. Charts on the walls showed detailed anatomical studies of human nervous systems. Video screens played recordings of experiments that no civilized being should ever see. "Did you learn what you wanted to know?" Li Jun asked. "Oh yes," Vexter replied. "We learned that humans feel pain more intensely than any other species. We have studied. You also feel hope more strongly, and love, and anger. These emotions create quantum resonances that most beings cannot achieve, and that's why the artifact responded to us." Precisely. The artifact was designed to bond with beings capable of extreme emotional states. Most species in the galaxy have evolved beyond such primitive feelings, but humans embrace them. That makes you dangerous. Vexter raised his weapons. They hummed with energy, designed to disrupt the quantum bonds that held Li Jun's new form together. The Council has decided that humanity must be eliminated before you can spread this contamination to other species. These experiments have given us the data we need to create weapons specifically designed to kill your kind. Li Jun smiled sadly. You still don't understand, do you? Understand what those emotions you think make us weak are actually what make us strong. When you hurt us, we don't just feel pain, we feel the need to protect others from that same pain. When you threaten us, we don't just feel fear, we feel the determination to make sure you can never threaten anyone again. Vextar fired his weapons. The energy beams struck Li Jun directly in the chest. For a moment, his flames flickered and dimmed. The quantum disruptors were actually working. But then, Li Jun thought about the human prisoners he had just freed. He thought about Kim Su, and all the others who had suffered in this place. He thought about every human colony that was in danger from the Council's genocidal plans. The fire blazed brighter than ever before. The quantum disruptors overloaded and exploded. Vexter's crystalline body cracked as the backlash hit him. He fell to his knees, his rainbow reflections flickering like a broken mirror. Impossible, he whispered. The disruptors should have destroyed your quantum matrix. They would have. Li Jun agreed. If I was just using my own emotions. But I'm not alone in this. Every human who has ever lived, who has ever hoped for something better, who has ever loved someone enough to fight for them, they're all part of this fire now. Li Jun knelt beside the broken alien. His flames dimmed to a gentle glow that wouldn't cause more pain. I'm not going to kill you, he said quietly. Do you know why? Vextar could only stare with his fractured crystal eyes. Because the fire doesn't want revenge. It wants something better. It wants a galaxy where beings like you can't hurt innocent people anymore. Li Jun stood and walked to the facility's main communication array. He placed his hand on the transmitter and let his fire flow into it. The signal that went out was heard across half the galaxy, broadcasting on every frequency the Council used. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of stars themselves. My name is Li Jun. 6 months ago, agents of the Galactic Council murdered my friends and tried to kill me. They failed. Instead, they created something they fear more than death itself, a human who refuses to be afraid. The signal reached Council worlds, human colonies, and neutral systems. Everyone in the galaxy heard what came next. I have just liberated 37 human prisoners from a Council torture facility on Nexus 7. They were being experimented on, cut apart while still alive, all in the name of scientific research. This ends now. Li Jun's flames grew brighter as his message continued. To the Galactic Council, I say this. Every human you have imprisoned will be freed. Every facility where you conduct these experiments will be destroyed. Every agent who participates in your genocide will answer for their crimes. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in across the galaxy. And to my fellow humans, wherever you are, I say this. You are not alone. The fire that chose me belongs to all of us. It is our hope, our dreams, our refusal to give up even when everything seems lost. They tried to destroy us because they feared what we might become. The transmission ended with an image that would be remembered forever. Li Jun standing in the ruins of the torture facility, surrounded by the humans he had freed, his flames casting light into the darkest corners of the galaxy. The hunt had begun, but now the Council would learn something they had never expected. Sometimes the prey fights back. Word of Li Jun's broadcast spread through human colonies like wildfire. In cantinas and coffee shops, in mining tunnels and space stations, humans whispered about the man who had survived alien betrayal and now wielded the power of stars themselves. What started as rumors became hope, and hope became something far more dangerous to the Galactic Council. It became rebellion. On the mining colony of Kepler's Rest, Dr. Kachumin gathered with his fellow humans in the storage bay after their shift ended. They had just heard the news from Nexus 7, 37 humans, freed from Council torture chambers. The images were spreading through the underground networks faster than the Council could block them. He's real, whispered Engineer Park Soo, her hands still shaking from watching the footage. The man made of fire. He's actually real, and he's fighting back, added young mechanic Kim Jun for the first time in decades. Someone is fighting back against the Council. Cho Min nodded grimly. He was older than the others, old enough to remember when humans first joined the galactic community. Back then, they had believed the Council's promises of equality and cooperation. That belief had died slowly over the years, as humans were relegated to the worst jobs, the most dangerous assignments, the furthest colonies. Council enforcers executed 3 families last week, Cho Min said quietly. The Lees, the Parks, and the Yangs. Their crime was talking about human independence. They called it harboring seditious thoughts. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the families. They had been good people, just trying to make a life on this harsh mining world. We can't let this continue, Park Soo said. But what can we do? We're just workers. We don't have weapons or ships or training. That's when the lights in the storage bay began to flicker. The workers looked up nervously. The power grid on Kepler's Rest was old and unreliable, but this was different. The lights weren't just flickering randomly. They were pulsing in a pattern, like a heartbeat made of electricity. Then, the temperature in the room began to rise. "Everyone stay calm," Chomin said, but his voice betrayed his own nervousness. "It's probably just a malfunction." The air itself began to glow with a soft silver light. The workers backed against the walls as the glow concentrated in the center of the room. It grew brighter and brighter until they had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Li Jun stood before them. He looked like a man, but also like something more. His skin had a faint luminescence that made him seem carved from starlight. His eyes held depths that spoke of journeys across the galaxy and powers beyond imagination. But when he smiled, he looked perfectly human. "Hello," he said simply. The workers stared at him in amazement. Kim Jun was the first to find his voice. "You're him? You're really him. The one from the broadcasts. I'm Li Jun," he replied. "And I heard you need help." Chomin stepped forward, his initial fear replaced by desperate hope. "The council enforcers killed our people. They're saying any human who talks about resistance will be executed. We want to fight back, but we don't know how." Li Jun nodded understanding. "The council thinks they can frighten you into submission. They think humans are weak because you feel emotions strongly. But they're wrong about what those emotions can do." He held out his hand, and flames danced across his palm. But these weren't the destructive fires the aliens feared. These flames were warm and comforting, like a campfire on a cold night. The fire chose humans because we're willing to hope even when hope seems impossible, because we're willing to fight even when victory seems out of reach. The council calls this foolishness. I call it our greatest strength. Li Jun closed his hand, but the warmth remained in the air around them. "I can share small pieces of this fire with those who are willing to stand up and fight. Not enough to make you like me, but enough to give you an edge." "What kind of edge?" Park Su asked. "Your tools will cut through alien armor like it's made of paper. Your weapons will pierce alien shields. Your vehicles will run faster and longer than they were ever designed to. And when the council comes for you, you won't have to face them defenseless." One by one, the workers stepped forward. Li Jun touched each of them briefly on the forehead. They felt warmth flow through their bodies, settling into their hearts like a tiny sun. They were still human, but now they carried a piece of something greater. "There's more," Li Jun continued. "You're not alone in this fight. I've been visiting human colonies across the galaxy. Everywhere I go, I find people ready to stand up against the council's tyranny. You're part of something bigger now." Over the following weeks, the resistance grew. On distant worlds, human miners found that their tools could now cut through solid rock like butter. Human engineers discovered that their equipment worked with impossible efficiency. Human soldiers learned that their weapons could penetrate armor that had been impervious for centuries. But the council was adapting to. Dr. Yune had been a council scientist for 15 years before she defected. She was working in a secret laboratory on the core world of Zentara Prime when she finally saw too much to ignore. The project she had been assigned to was called Operation Prometheus, and its goal was simple: the complete elimination of humanity from the galaxy. The council had spent months studying the footage from Li Jun's rescue missions. They had analyzed every flame, every energy signature, every quantum fluctuation his powers produced. Their best scientists worked around the clock to develop countermeasures. The result was the Null Trooper program. Dr. Yune watched in horror as council soldiers were fitted with reality-dampening armor. The suits could partially suppress quantum energy fields, making Li Jun's powers less effective. More terrifying, the armor was powered by the life force of captured humans. That night, she stole the Operation Prometheus files and escaped in a stolen shuttle. 3 days later, she found the human resistance on Kepler's Rest. "They're calling it Operation Prometheus," she told Li Jun and the resistance leaders. "They plan to attack every human settlement simultaneously, not to conquer, but to exterminate every man, woman, and child." Li Jun studied the stolen files with growing anger. The council's plan was more thorough than he had imagined. They had identified every human colony, every ship, every outpost. They knew exactly where to strike to wipe out humanity in a single coordinated assault. When Chomin asked, 6 weeks, Dr. Yune replied, "They're waiting for their Null Trooper program to be complete. They want to be ready in case you show up to interfere." Li Jun stood up from the table where the files were spread. His flames flickered with barely controlled rage, but his voice remained calm. "Then we have 6 weeks to prepare. 6 weeks to turn scattered resistance cells into an army. 6 weeks to show the council that humans aren't the helpless victims they think we are." He looked around the room at the faces of humans who had decided to fight rather than surrender. Miners and engineers, dock workers and mechanics. People who had never wanted to be soldiers but were willing to become warriors. To protect their families. "The council thinks they know what humans are capable of," Li Jun said. "They think our emotions make us weak and predictable. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Over the next 6 weeks, the resistance transformed. Li Jun traveled dozens of worlds, sharing pieces of the cosmic fire with anyone willing to fight. Cho-min became a leader, organizing supply lines and communication networks. Dr. Yoon, a shared council secrets that helped the resistance stay one step ahead of their enemies. But the council was preparing to their factories worked overtime to produce null trooper armor. Their fleets gathered in secret staging areas. Their scientists perfected weapons designed specifically to kill humans. The war that was coming would determine the fate of humanity. It would be a battle between the Council's desire for control and humanity's refusal to surrender their dreams. As the deadline approached, Lee Jun stood on the observation deck of the Resistance's hidden base, looking out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, millions of humans lived their lives, unaware of the storm that was about to break over them. The fire within him burned steadily. Fed by the hopes and dreams of every human who refused to give up, the Council thought they could extinguish that fire by killing its carriers. They were about to discover that some flames burned brighter when you try to put them out. The attack began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Lee Jun was mediating in his quarters when the first wave of agony hit him. It felt like someone had reached into his chest and started tearing out pieces of his soul. The cosmic fire within him roared in pain as something terrible happened across the galaxy. Humans were dying, not just a few, but thousands, then tens of thousands, then millions. Lee Jun staggered to his feet, flames erupting around him in chaotic patterns. Through his connection to the cosmic fire, he could feel every human death like a physical blow. The Council had activated their doomsday weapon. On Earth, the birth world of humanity, people collapsed in the streets as invisible energy beams drained the life force from their bodies. On distant colonies, families died in their sleep as the Council's weapon reached across space to harvest their souls. Even on ships traveling between stars, human crews fell dead at their posts. The weapon was called the Soul Harvester, and it had been years in the making. Hidden stations throughout the galaxy focused energy beams on human settlements, draining life force and channeling it to a massive collection facility. The Council wasn't just committing genocide, they were stealing the energy of human death to power something even worse. Dr. Yune burst into Lee Jun's quarters, her face pale with terror. "They've activated it," she gasped. "Operation Prometheus has begun. The Soul Harvester is targeting every human world simultaneously." "How many?" Lee Jun asked, through gritted teeth. The pain of feeling so many deaths was almost unbearable. "Preliminary reports suggest 3 billion dead in the first hour," she whispered, "and it's accelerating." Lee Jun's flames blazed higher. For a moment, the entire resistance base shook as his power threatened to spiral out of control. But then he forced himself to calm down. Rage wouldn't save the humans who were still alive. "Where is the main collection facility?" he demanded. Dr. Yoon, they pulled up a star chart on her portable computer. "Here, Nexus Prime, the Council's primary weapons research station. It's located in the Void Sector, surrounded by artificial black holes to prevent escape." Lee Jun studied the tactical data. Nexus Prime was the size of a small moon, protected by reality dampening fields that could suppress his powers. Worse, the station was crawling with null troopers, Council soldiers equipped with armor specifically designed to fight him. "It's a trap," Dr. Yune said unnecessarily. "They want you to come. They're using the death energy to power a weapon designed to destroy you specifically." "I know," Lee Jun replied, "but I'm going anyway. It's suicide. Even with your powers, you can't fight an entire battle station by yourself." Lee Jun looked at her with eyes that held the light of dying stars. "I'm not going to fight the station. I'm going to save it." Before Dr. Yune could ask what he meant, Lee Jun vanished in a burst of silver flame. He traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself, bending space and time around him as he raced toward Nexus Prime. With every parsec he covered, he felt more humans dying. The Soul Harvester was working perfectly, draining the life from billions of people and funneling their energy to the Council's ultimate weapon. But the Council had made one crucial mistake in their calculations. They assumed that human death energy would weaken Lee Jun, cutting off the source of his power. Instead, it was making him stronger. Every human who died became part of the cosmic fire. Their hopes, dreams, love, and determination joined the energy that flowed through Lee Jun's transformed body. The Council thought they were harvesting death. What they were actually doing was feeding life itself into their enemy. Nexus Prime appeared before him like a metallic cancer against the stars. The station was massive, its surface covered with weapon arrays and shield generators. At its heart sat the Soul Harvester, a crystalline structure that pulsed with the stolen life force of humanity. Lee Jun felt the reality dampening fields as soon as he approached the station. His flames dimmed and flickered as the artificial fields tried to disrupt his quantum matrix. For a moment, he felt almost human again, vulnerable and small. Then he remembered Park Hannah dying in his arms. He remembered the tortured prisoners on Nexus 7. He remembered every human who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of something better. The dampening fields couldn't suppress the combined will of an entire species. Lee Jun crashed through the station's outer hull like a meteorite made of pure determination. Null troopers swarmed to intercept him, their reality-dampening armor making them partially immune to his powers. Their weapons fired beams designed to disrupt quantum energy fields. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Li Jun fought his way through corridors filled with enemies, his flames adapting to every challenge. When the Null troopers' weapons proved effective, he changed tactics, using bursts of kinetic energy instead of fire. When their armor blocked his direct attacks, he superheated the air around them until they collapsed from heat exhaustion. But for every enemy he defeated, 10 more took their place. The station had been designed specifically to contain him, and the Council had prepared for this moment for months. Finally, battered and exhausted, Li Jun reached the Soul Harvester's control room. There, waiting for him, stood the Architect. The Architect was ancient beyond measure, a being so old that its species had died out millions of years ago. It existed now only as pure consciousness held together by advanced technology. Its body was a shimmering construct of energy and metal that hurt to look at directly. "Welcome, Li Jun," the Architect said in a voice like grinding galaxies. "You have arrived, precisely as calculated." "Let me guess," Li Jun said, fighting to keep his flames stable against the station's dampening fields. "This was all part of your plan." "Indeed, the artifact on Karos Prime, your transformation, even the resistance you have built, all of it was orchestrated to bring you here. You see, the Soul Harvester requires a specific type of energy to reach its full potential. It needs the life force of an entire species, channeled through a quantum-bonded individual." Li Jun felt the trap closing around him. "You're using me as a conduit. The deaths of your people provide the raw energy. Your connection to the cosmic fire provides the focus. Together, they will power a weapon capable of rewriting reality itself. The Council doesn't simply want to rule the galaxy, Li Jun, we want to remake it without the chaos that species like humanity represent." Machinery rose from the floor around Li Jun, trapping him in a web of energy siphons and quantum extractors. The Soul Harvester's crystal core began to pulse faster as the machine prepared to use him as a living battery for universal genocide. "You made one mistake," Li Jun said, as the energy siphons locked onto his quantum signature. "And what is that?" Li Jun smiled, and for a moment his flames burned brighter than the station's dampening fields. "You assumed the cosmic fire was bound to my body, but it's not. It's bound to my soul. And souls can't be harvested. They can only be given freely." The Architect realized its error too late. As the Soul Harvester tried to drain Li Jun's energy, he opened himself completely to the cosmic fire, not just the piece he carried, but all of it. Every spark of human creativity, every dream of a better future, every act of love and sacrifice throughout history. The Soul Harvester, designed to steal and contain energy, suddenly found itself trying to hold the unlimited potential of an entire species' imagination. The machine began to overload. "Impossible," the Architect whispered as alarms screamed throughout the station. "No single being can channel that much power." "You're right," Li Jun agreed as the energy siphons exploded around him. "But I'm not a single being anymore. I'm every human who ever lived, who ever dreamed, who ever refused to give up hope." The Soul Harvester's crystal core cracked, then shattered, releasing all the stolen life energy at once. But instead of dissipating into space, the energy flowed back through the quantum channels the Council had created, racing toward every world where humans had died. Across the galaxy, people who had fallen to the Soul Harvester began to stir. Death, it turned out, was just another challenge that humanity refused to accept. The Architect's construct body began to fail as feedback from the overloaded weapon tore through the station's systems. "What have you done?" Li Jun, now glowing so brightly that he looked like a star given human form, walked toward the ancient being without fear. "I've shown you what humans really are. We're not chaos that needs to be controlled. We're the universe's way of creating new possibilities." The battle between them shook the foundations of reality itself. But in the end, the Architect was fighting for control over a universe it wanted to remain the same forever. Li Jun was fighting for a future where anything was possible. There was no contest. The battle between Li Jun and the Architect raged through dimensions that normal beings couldn't even perceive. Reality bent and twisted around them, as two fundamentally different visions of the universe clashed with the force of dying stars. The Architect fought with the cold precision of eons, wielding technologies that had been perfected before Earth's sun was born. It commanded armies of Null troopers, whose reality-dampening armor made them partially immune to the cosmic fire. Its weapons could tear holes in space itself, creating voids where nothing could exist. But Li Jun fought with something the ancient being had never encountered before: the unlimited creativity of human imagination. Every time the Architect adapted its tactics, Li Jun found a new way to counter them. When energy weapons failed, he used gravity itself as a weapon. When the Null troopers surrounded him, he turned their own dampening fields against each other. The cosmic fire had taught him that the universe was not a machine to be controlled, but a living thing that grew through change and possibility. The architect represented stagnation, the desire to freeze everything in place. Li Jun represented evolution, the endless human drive to become something more. As their battle destroyed entire sections of Nexus Prime, Li Jun began to understand what the cosmic fire really was. It wasn't alien technology or some mysterious force from beyond the stars. It was humanity itself, distilled down to its purest essence. Every human who had ever lived contributed to the fire. Every dream, every hope, every moment when someone looked at an impossible situation and decided to try anyway. The fire was the collective will of his species, refusing to accept limitations imposed by others. The architect seemed to sense this realization. Its attacks became more desperate, more vicious. It began targeting not just Li Jun, but the quantum channels connecting him to human colonies across the galaxy. If I cannot harvest your power, the ancient being snarled, then I will sever your connection to it entirely. Let us see how well you fight when you are truly alone. Quantum disruptors throughout the station activated simultaneously, creating interference patterns designed to cut Li Jun off from the cosmic fire. For a terrifying moment, he felt the connection wavering. The flames around him dimmed as the disruptors tried to isolate him from the source of his strength. But then Li Jun heard something that made him smile. Voices, human voices, singing across the galaxy. On worlds where the Soul Harvester had failed to complete its work, humans were singing the old songs, children's lullabies, and workers' anthems. Folk songs passed down through generations and popular music from a dozen different colonies. They were singing for him, for each other, for the idea that hope could survive even in the darkest times. The quantum disruptors couldn't block something that existed in the hearts of an entire species. The cosmic fire blazed back to full strength, fed not by technology, but by the simple human refusal to surrender. Impossible, the architect whispered. No species should be capable of such unity. You still don't understand, Li Jun said, his flames now bright enough to illuminate the entire station. We're not unified because we're all the same. We're unified because we're all different, and we choose to stand together anyway. He reached out with the cosmic fire, not to attack the architect but to show it something. Images flowed between them, humans from 1,000 different worlds, speaking different languages, following different customs, but all sharing the same basic hope for a better tomorrow. This is what you're trying to destroy, Li Jun continued. Not a threat to your order, but the universe's greatest gift to itself. The ability to grow, to change, to become something new. The architect recoiled from the images as if they were poison. Its ancient consciousness couldn't comprehend a species that celebrated differences instead of fearing them. Chaos, it hissed. Unpredictability. You will tear the galaxy apart with your endless changes. Maybe, Li Jun admitted, but we'll also build something amazing in its place. The final phase of their battle took place not in the physical world, but in the realm of pure possibility. Li Jun and the architect fought with competing visions of what the universe could become. The architect showed a galaxy, frozen in perfect order. Every world the same, every species following identical patterns. No war because there was no growth. No death because there was no real life. It was stable, predictable, and utterly without hope. Li Jun's vision was different. He showed a galaxy alive with possibility. Worlds where different species worked together to solve problems no one could handle alone. Technologies born from the marriage of human creativity and alien logic. Art, music, and literature that expressed ideas no single species could imagine by itself. It was chaotic, uncertain, and full of infinite potential. In the end, the universe itself chose between them. The cosmic fire wasn't just connected to humanity. It was connected to every species that had ever dared to dream of something better than their current existence. The architect had ruled for so long by suppressing that creative spark, keeping everyone safe but stagnant. Now, awakened by humanity's example, that spark began to burn in species across the galaxy. The Kaleri, who had served the council for 1,000 years, suddenly remembered their ancient love of poetry. The Voss, bred for warfare, rediscovered their gift for nurturing growing things. Even the crystalline Jerry began to feel emotions they had thought were primitive weaknesses. The architect's power, built on the suppression of growth and change, began to crumble as its subjects remembered what it meant to hope. What have you done? The ancient being demanded as its construct body started to fracture. I've reminded everyone what they used to be, Li Jun replied. Before you taught them to be afraid of their own potential. The architect made one final, desperate attempt to destroy Li Jun. It channeled all of its remaining power into a reality-destroying weapon that could erase him from existence itself. But Li Jun didn't fight back. Instead, he opened himself completely to the cosmic fire, becoming a conduit for every dream that had ever been dreamed, every hope that had ever been hoped. The architect's weapon struck him directly. For a moment, Li Jun felt himself beginning to fade from reality. Then the singing got louder. Not just humans now, but voices from across the galaxy. Species that had been silent for millennia suddenly remembering their own songs. The weapon that was meant to erase Li Jun instead found itself trying to destroy the combined creative will of an entire galaxy. The feedback destroyed the architect instantly. Its ancient consciousness, unable to adapt to a universe that refused to be controlled, simply ceased to exist. Li Jun stood in the ruins of Nexus Prime. No longer quite human, but having never lost his humanity. The cosmic fire flowed through him like liquid starlight, carrying the hopes and dreams of billions of beings who had just remembered what it meant to be alive. The soul harvester lay in pieces around him, its stolen energy already flowing back to the worlds it had been taken from. Across the galaxy, humans who had died were opening their eyes, restored not by technology but by the simple refusal to accept that death was the end of the story. But Li Jun knew this was only the beginning. The Council's surviving members would try to restore their old order. There would be resistance from species that preferred safety to freedom. The galaxy would face challenges that no one could predict, and that was exactly how it should be. Li Jun smiled as he felt the cosmic fire settling into a new pattern, no longer centered on him alone but flowing through every being capable of dreaming of something better. He had started this journey as a man seeking revenge for his murdered friends. He would finish it as something far more important, a teacher, showing the galaxy that the greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to control others, but the courage to let them choose their own destiny. The fire had refused to consume him, because it had known what he could become. Now it was time to help others make the same choice. The explosion of Nexus Prime was visible from 3 star systems away, but it wasn't the destruction of a weapons platform that beings across the galaxy would remember. It was the wave of creative fire that spread outward at faster than light speeds, touching every world, every ship, every living being in its path. Where the soul harvester had stolen death, the cosmic fire brought rebirth. On Earth, Sarah Kim opened her eyes in a hospital morgue, gasping as life flooded back into her body. She had been dead for 6 hours, one of billions killed by the Council's weapon. Now she sat up, confused but alive, with memories of a strange dream where she had been part of something vast and wonderful. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on every human world. The dead rose not as monsters or empty shells, but as themselves, restored by the creative power of the cosmic fire. Death, it turned out, was just another limitation that humanity refused to accept. But the fire's effects went far beyond bringing back the dead. On the council world of Zentara Prime, Councillor Vex stood before his emergency cabinet, trying to maintain order as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. His carefully controlled civilization was falling apart. The Kolari homeworld is in chaos, reported his aide, a nervous amphibian creature. They've abandoned their posts and started something they call a poetry revolution. They're writing verses about hope and change. What about the Voss military? Vex demanded. They've laid down their weapons and started farming. They say they want to grow things instead of destroying them. Vex's blue skin turned pale. The Jerry research stations shut down. The scientists say they can't concentrate on their experiments because they keep feeling something called emotions. They want to study what it means to be happy instead of efficient. Through the council chamber's windows, Vex could see his own people changing. Kolari, who had served the council for centuries, were painting colorful murals on government buildings. Children who had been taught to suppress their natural curiosity were running through the streets, asking questions about everything they saw. The galaxy was remembering how to dream. Li Jun materialized in the chamber like starlight given form. He no longer needed ships to travel between worlds. The cosmic fire had taught him to step between points in space as easily as walking through a door. Councillor Vex, he said calmly, we need to talk. Vex and his remaining council members backed away in terror. They had seen what Li Jun could do when angry. Now surrounded by the silver-blue flames of the cosmic fire, he looked like a god of creation itself. Please, Vex whispered. We were only following orders. The architect made us do it. I know, Li Jun replied, and his voice held no anger, only sadness. That's the tragedy of what the council became. You were so afraid of chaos that you forgot how to live. He gestured toward the windows, where Kolari artists were creating beauty for the simple joy of creation. Look at your people now. Are they really more dangerous because they're happy? Vex looked, and for the first time in centuries, he saw his species as they truly were. Not perfect servants of an ancient order, but living beings with hopes and dreams and the capacity to grow. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now you choose, Li Jun said. You can try to restore the old ways, to force everyone back into their assigned roles. Or you can help build something new, something better. Over the following months, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had thought possible. Kim Soo, the young engineer Li Jun had rescued from the torture facility, became one of the new government's key organizers. She helped coordinate the establishment of the Galactic Assembly, a democracy based on cooperation rather than domination. Every species had a voice, and every voice mattered. Dr. Yoon, a lead scientific expeditions to understand the cosmic fire's effects. They discovered that creativity itself was a fundamental force of the universe, as basic as gravity or electromagnetism. The council had spent millennia suppressing it, but now it flowed freely, leading to innovations that transformed every aspect of galactic society. Cho Min became an ambassador, traveling to worlds where fear of change still lingered. He helped other species understand that growth didn't mean losing their identity. It meant becoming the best version of what they could be. On the former council worlds, art galleries and concert halls replaced weapons factories. Universities opened their doors to students from every species, encouraging them to ask questions that had been forbidden for generations. Children who had been raised to follow orders without question learned to think for themselves. Not everyone embraced the changes. Some council loyalists tried to organize resistance movements, spreading propaganda about the chaos that freedom would bring. Few worlds attempted to close their borders and return to the old ways. But the cosmic fire had awakened something in the galaxy that couldn't be put back to sleep. Once beings remembered what it felt like to hope, to dream, to create something new, they couldn't forget. Li Jun took on the role he had been meant for from the beginning. Not a ruler, but a teacher. He traveled the galaxy, helping species rediscover their creative potential. The fire still flowed through him, but now it flowed through everyone who chose to embrace possibility over fear. On a newly terraformed world called Haven, he stood, with representatives from a dozen species, watching as humans and aliens worked together to build the galaxy's first truly integrated city. Buildings grew from the ground using Jerry crystal technology, powered by human fusion reactors, and decorated with Kaleri artistic flourishes. "It's beautiful," said Ambassador Kresh, a former council enforcer who now helped protect refugee settlements. "I never imagined different species could create something like this together." "This is just the beginning," Li Jun replied. "Wait until you see what we build next." A young human girl named Park Min ran up to them, her eyes bright with excitement. She had been born after the transformation, part of the first generation to grow up in a galaxy where anything was possible. "Teacher Li," she said breathlessly, "we're starting a project to build a city that floats in space, where people from any world can come to study. The Voss are going to grow the food, the Kaleri will design the art, and we humans will figure out how to make it all work together. Want to see the plans?" Li Jun knelt down to her level, smiling at the boundless enthusiasm that only children possessed. "I'd love to see them." As Park Min ran off to get her drawings, Li Jun felt the cosmic fire pulse with quiet satisfaction. This was what it had been waiting for through all those millennia. Not a single perfect being to wield its power, but an entire galaxy learning to create wonders together. The fire had never been about him, he realized. It had been about them, all of them. Every being in the galaxy who had the courage to dream of something better than what they had. Years passed, and the galaxy continued to change. Wars became debates. Conquest became cooperation. Fear became curiosity about what lay beyond the next star. Li Jun aged, as all humans do. But the cosmic fire kept him strong enough to see the fruits of the revolution he had helped start. He watched the first generation of truly integrated galactic citizens come of age. He saw technologies develop that no single species could have imagined alone. He witnessed the birth of art and music that expressed ideas from a dozen different worlds. On his final day, he stood on the observation deck of the first truly integrated space station, watching ships from 100 different worlds dock peacefully. In the same harbor, humans worked alongside Kaleri poets, Voss farmers, and even former Jerry researchers who had learned to smile. Kim Soo approached him, her hair now silver with age, but her eyes still bright with the fire of possibility. She had become the elected leader of the Galactic Assembly, chosen not by force but by the free will of billions of beings. "Any regrets?" she asked, standing beside the man who had changed everything. Li Jun considered the question as he watched a group of human and alien children playing together in the station's central park. They were inventing a new game, one that required cooperation between species with completely different abilities. It was chaos, but it was beautiful chaos. "Just one," he said finally. "I wish Park Anna could have seen this. Olivin, my original crew who died on Karos Prime, they should have been here to see what their sacrifice led to. They are here," Kim Soo said gently. "Every time someone chooses hope over fear, every time beings work together instead of fighting, every time we create something new instead of destroying something old, they're all part of the fire now." Li Jun nodded, feeling the truth of her words. The cosmic fire had taught him that death was just another form of transformation. The love, hope, and dreams of those who came before lived on in those who came after. As the station's artificial sun set, marking the end of another day in the new galaxy, Li Jun felt the cosmic fire beginning to change within him. It was time. For the next phase of its existence, it's moving on, he said with wonder rather than sadness. "The fire, it doesn't need me anymore. It's found something better." "What's better than you?" Kim Soo asked, concerned that Li Jun smiled and pointed toward the children playing in the park. Them, all of them, a galaxy full of beings who don't need someone else to carry the fire for them. They can carry it themselves now. The cosmic fire began to flow out of Li Jun, not draining away but expanding, touching every being on the station and then spreading beyond. It moved through the quantum networks that connected the galaxy's communication systems, reaching every world, every ship, every settlement where sentient life existed. For the first time in the universe's history, every sapient being felt the touch of infinite possibility, not as a gift from some higher power, but as their own birthright, the ability to dream, to create, to become something more than they were. Li Jun felt his body growing lighter as the fire completed its transformation. He was aging rapidly now, but he felt no fear. He had done what he came to do. "Tell them," he said to Kim Soo as his form began to fade into starlight. "Tell them that the fire was never mine. It was always theirs. All they had to do was choose to accept it." "What should we tell the children about you?" she asked through tears. "Tell them," Li Jun said with his final breath, "that once there was a man who was left to burn, but the fire refused to consume him. Instead, it followed him until he learned how to share it with everyone." Li Jun dissolved into points of light that scattered throughout the station, each spark finding its way to a different being. But he wasn't gone. He had become part of something larger, something that would endure as long as beings dared to dream of better tomorrows. In the years that followed, children across the galaxy would tell stories about the fire bearer who taught them that the greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to destroy, but the courage to create. They would learn that every being carried a spark of that same cosmic fire, and that together, they could build wonders that no single species could imagine alone. The galaxy burned, but it burned with the light of hope, creativity, and the endless drive to reach for something better. The fire had finally found its true purpose, not to follow one man, but to live in the hearts of everyone who refused to accept that impossible was just another word for opportunity. And in quiet moments, when someone faced a challenge that seemed too great to overcome, they would feel a gentle warmth and remember the words of the fire bearer. The fire chose humans not because we were perfect, but because we were willing to keep trying, even when perfection seemed impossible. The story ended, but the fire burned on, carried by every being who had learned that the universe's greatest gift wasn't power over others, but the freedom to become whoever they chose to be. In the end, Li Jun had kept his promise. He had shown the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when they refused to surrender their dreams. And the galaxy had chosen to dream along with them. The fire refused to consume him because it had bigger plans. Plans that included everyone willing to believe that tomorrow could be better than today, and that the greatest adventures were still waiting to be discovered among the stars. The new dawn had come, and it would never end.